A statue doesn't reflect what is built or imagined. It represents what his viewer interprets. Every year in January, Scots think about Robert Burns. But looking at a statue in September can give a completely different perspective. Today, I'm going to take you to a statue that you're not expecting, to ask you what it makes you think. I'm going to tell you what I told some English visitors. I'm going to reveal the eureka moment when I realised that this was more than a Robert Burns story. And we're going to explore a deeper truth about Scottish culture. Now, if that seems like a bold claim, then you'll have to stick with me to find out. If you're interested in the people, places and events in Scottish history, then click the subscribe button at the bottom right of the screen and ring the notification bell to be told when I upload new videos. In the meantime, let me tell you a story. I was standing on this spot last September when a couple of English holidaymakers passed by. Now, I overheard them pondering about the 10.5-foot bronze statue on the other side of the road. Now, I say bronze. It's clay on the inside and bronze on the outside. Like an M&M, but more chocolatey. Anyway, I'm a friendly, outgoing person who always wants to present Scots as welcoming and helpful. Plus I'm a tour guide and a bit of a smart arse. So I explained that the statue was first unveiled on the 1st of August 1896. That it represents a young woman who'd been born just up the road there in Dunoon in the 1760s. At any rate, when she was a wee lassie, her family moved to Campbelltown and then later back across the water over there to Greenock. When she became a domestic servant in Ayrshire, she'd moved from her native Gaeltacht to the world of Scots speakers. And not just any old Scots speakers. Who else was living in Ayrshire in 1786 but Robert Burns? Oh, our southern tourists had heard of Robert Burns. But they didn't know about the nasty split he'd had with his amour, Jean Armour. She was pregnant. Oh, her dad went mental and swore that Burns would never go near his daughter again. Apart from, they should stand together for the necessary minister's chastisement and public humiliation that was to be repeated over a period of weeks in the church. It was while he was waiting for that to end that Burns's eye fell on this bonny wee Highland lass. Oh, she was simply delicious, with her fair hair and her cute accent. But this time, everybody knew that Jean Armour was in trouble. But Burns was able to assure his new attraction that she was all his heart desired. And he would be free to openly express it publicly as soon as his period of public scolding was finished. Well, it wasn't very long before the Highland lass was pregnant as well. Oh, it must be something in the water, said the English couple. Only if they mate like sticklebacks, says I. I don't think they understood the reproductive cycle of a fish because they started to walk off. Not so fast, says I. The story's not finished. Over on the mainland between Mauchline and Tarbolton, there's a monument to where they parted. You see, Highland Mary thought it best to go back to Campbelltown in her condition. And it was near that memorial that she and Robert Burns met over the Mauchline burn. And there they pledged themselves to each other in a handfasting. They exchanged Bibles. They were married. And as soon as Rob was free to speak openly, they would meet again in Greenock and they would sail off to the West Indies together where Burns had a position on a plantation. So Highland Mary went back to the Highlands for a time where she regularly received letters and poems from her love. After a while, she returned to Greenock in anticipation of his arrival. And as she waited, her brother fell ill. Nursing him, it became clear that he was suffering from symptoms of malignant fever, or typhoid, that was gripping Greenock at the time. Of course, you know where the story is going. Cramped conditions, close proximity as she and the family watched him become weaker, trying to fend off the grim reaper who softly cut the last thread of life with the unrelenting scythe that awaits us all. Mary herself began to show symptoms, but strange symptoms that weren't typical. Her descent was more rapid, with the complication of pregnancy only realised by her father after both had died days later. He was just as enraged as Jean Armour's father had been. When Burns finally did make it to Greenock, it was to look down on a grave that contained his love and a tiny coffin at her feet. So now the statue of Highland Mary stands clasping that Bible exchanged in betrothal and looking with yearning across the Firth of Clyde and south towards Ayrshire, waiting for her sweetheart's return. At various points in his life, like the anniversary of her death, Burns is said to have experienced deep melancholy, and he wrote poems and songs for her right to the end. What would an English couple, ignorant of his existence till moments before, think of the statue? What do you think of it? After a poignant moment, the couple made to move off, but I had to stop them. Oh, but I haven't even started the story. I've got to tell you about the controversy. Well, for a kicker, her name wasn't Mary. It was actually Margaret Campbell. Okay, so they're anglicised names and she was a Gael, Mary, Myrid. It's probably not that controversial. But 100 years after she died, in 1886, the Glasgow Cowal Society, this area is called Cowal. Some Cowal folks in Glasgow decided to erect a statue to Highland Mary. They would raise funds by donation, but they would restrict the donations to £1 per person so that the small donations would allow as many people as possible to get involved and feel part of it. The statue would be erected up at Ochamore Farm, where she was born. But before you know it, the Duke of Argyll offered a more prominent site for the statue down here in Castle Hill. And then the Burns Chronicle announced that anyone who contributed 5 guineas would get their own 2-foot copy of Highland Mary. 10 guineas would get you a 3-foot figure. A posh fundraising ball was set up in Glasgow to raise money, grand events in London, overseas donations came in from Burns suppers in America and Canada, and the whole concept had been overtaken. The wider publicity raised questions about whether the statue should be made at all. One correspondent to the Glasgow Herald complained that people supporting the statue were degrading her memory and dishonouring Burns. After all, this was only a fleeting affair in the life of Burns. So why was he writing poems and songs about her right to the end? She had no claim to such recognition as a public monument. What has a simple Highland girl done that she should be elevated on a pinnacle of fame? Don't get me started on who deserves statues. Then there were other folks who said that Dunoon was the wrong place. Greenock was her final resting place where there's already a statue. A Campbelltown historian later said that she may have been born in Dunoon, but her closer connection was to Campbelltown. Debates about whether she was an innocent despoiled by Burns or a loose, floozy and temptress that led him astray. Oh, everyone had an opinion. Eventually, the statue was unveiled here on the 1st of August 1869. People travelled far and wide. Thousands gathered there in Castle Hill, but it was only invited guests with tickets that were allowed round the statue to hear the speeches from the likes of Lord Kelvin, who rolled into town. Locals had to stand at a distance, unable to hear what was going on. It made me think of some Burns suppers that I've performed at. Now, in some, it was hamely fare on which we dined. In others, Fine wine was served, and haggis, neeps and tatties, and those little moulded towers was followed by exquisitely roasted beef, a maze of cutlery to match each course, and polite conversation amongst folks who never spoke Scots in their lives, and they would scold their bairns if they ever heard them use it. Burns suppers that Burns would have hated. When organisers said of my performance, "Don't make it too Burnsy." If the statue in life of somebody who'd spent so short a time in Burns's life is manipulated to the ends and interests of late Victorians, how much more do some today hold Burns events to honour ourselves, our status, or corporate ends? Do statues really represent the men, women, or long-haired Skye Terriers they resemble? Or do they say more about our time than theirs? Statues so heavily painted over with our attitudes that we never see what's hidden underneath. Unless the nose is rubbed so frequently that the paint-stripped bronze reveals the Instagram opportunity by Greyfriars Kirk that used to be entirely black. Oh, my English couple were wishing they'd never asked new. These empty vessels, fresh face and naivety, had thought for a promenade. They had no idea what they were letting themselves in for. And I'd barely started on the statue debate. Did I tell you that she was going to go with her lover to work in a West Indian slave plantation? Oh, it's a wonder she hasn't gone for a drink in the water afore now. So why hasn't it gone in the drink? Surely because, as one of apparently only 3 statues to women at the time, this was the rallying point where suffragettes would gather in the early part of the 20th century. It's a statue to universal suffrage. I'm just about to get to the point. So, whilst you're waiting for the elephant that's been looming in the room to trumpet beside you, think on this. Statues have 4 lives. The life lived by the person themselves, the life imagined by the commissioners, the life given to them by the sculptor, and the life attributed by the viewer years later. So what's the subject that we've been avoiding? The revelation that struck me long after that poor English couple's ears had stopped bleeding. The thing that probably never even occurred to you when I asked you what you thought of the statue. The reason, more than any, that people would want to see Highland Mary cast into the sea. She was a Campbell! Aye, you thought I was going to let that slip under the radar. When I made a video about the massacre of Glencoe, pointing out the complexities of that event with who's to blame and who isn't, it's not as obvious as folks make out. There were some who were so caught up in an internalised fantasy that more than 300 years later, they still come out with the tired old trope of never trust a Campbell, don't eat their soup, we snubbed them at the Highland gathering. Is that how we should look at Highland Mary? Would you snub her at the Highland Games? The reason this is called Castle Hill is because it was the site of a Campbell castle. In fact, just behind the hill, in the churchyard beyond, 100 years before Mary was born, the Campbells perpetrated a massacre in the Laments much worse than the Glencoe massacre. If you don't know about it, don't worry, there'll be a link to a video at the end. But it was a shameful event, a truly wicked inhumanity. Who's to say the reason that Highland Mary gazes across to the mainland is with love struck long after Robert Burns? Maybe she's turning her back on the atrocities perpetrated by her Campbell ancestors in the churchyard behind her. If you want to understand a statue today, look not at the face of the sculpted, but into the eyes of the observer. Margaret Campbell, Highlander, domestic servant, lover, romantic, victim, unwitting beneficiary of a massacre perpetrated by our ancestors, or a reminder that man to man the world o'er should brothers be for all that. You decide. But please watch the video coming up on screen. It's truly important to your decision. A statue lives 4 lives. More often than not, the life of the person is gone. The life imagined by the commissioner is past. The life given by the sculptor is history. Only the viewer is in the present. O would some power the gift gie us to see ourselves as others see us. It would frae money a blunder free us and foolish notion. What airs and dress and gait would lay us, and even devotion. Lang may your Limerick